Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about a documentary called Last Take, Rust and the Story of Halyna Hutchins. And this is on Hulu right now, and it is a documentary about the shooting that took place on the set of the movie Rust, which was being executive produced and starred in by Alec Baldwin. And he ended up being charged with involuntary manslaughter, along with the woman, Halyna Gutierrez-Reed, who was the armorist on the set. She was in charge of all of the firearms, anything having to do with any sort of explosions or anything. And she was also charged because she was she was the one who was in charge of this bullet that ended up being fired by Baldwin. It's actually, live ammunition is not allowed on movie sets at all. And they have armorists on set whenever there's the use of prop guns. And they are supposed to make sure that these guns are firing these dummy bullets, and they're fired safely, and the people are handling, even though there's not live ammunition in there, you can still get hurt it is a prop gun that kind of makes an explosion. It's got a lot of force, something's coming out of it. It can be dangerous. So that's the armorist's only job, is to make sure that everybody is safe. And this woman, Halyna Gutierrez-Reed, was extremely negligent, to put it lightly. So she was tried first, and then Baldwin was tried, and we'll talk more about that later. But just in general, this documentary was made by, I think, made by a friend of Halyna Hutchins, who was one of the victims. She ended up losing her life. There was another person shot who was actually the director, Joel Souza, in a real freak accident. It was a real freak accident. But Halyna lost her life. And anyway, this is quite a story. But I guess before we get into the details of it, let's talk about what we thought about the documentary, just high level.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I felt like it did a very good job of being pretty, I don't want to say neutral, but really just laying out the facts. I didn't feel that as if that they were kind of really coming in and blaming anyone or saying it's this person or that person, what's happening. I think, I was a little disappointed we didn't learn more about Halyna, because I felt like, oh, this is her story. I thought we were going to start with this is her birth, and this happened. And we do hear a little bit about who she is, but the thrust of the documentary very much is about what happened that day. How did we get here? And I thought it did a very good job of helping you see how it was. Yes, I do believe that this Gutierrez-Reed was a sloppy armorist, but you could also see how it wasn't just the fact that she was a little sloppy. It was so many other factors that went into play. And I think if I could bring this back to the modern workplace and what's happening now, is I think that this is a good example, because Gutierrez-Reed had two jobs, the armorist and a prop. And the prop master. And part of this was a budgetary thing, because they didn't have a lot of money. They couldn't afford an experienced full-time armorist, because that's very, very expensive. So they found her, who didn't have as much experience, but her father was very famous for that. Again, Nepo baby kind of a thing. And they also saddled her with this other job of doing props. And I do think that is, again, you as the boss, you as these producers and the directors and all of that, at some point you do have to take some ownership of the fact that you should have never combined these two jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I think Gutierrez was sloppy and all of those things, but I also feel like, yeah, you were asking her to do too much. And this is what happens. This is what happens when greed and, trying to save a buck and trying to cut corners. This is what happens.
Yeah. I mean, this is an independent film, small budget, not a lot of time. I think they kind of have like 1 month that, they've got to shoot this film. There's a lot going on. There were other safety issues happening on the set. And because they were trying to get this done so quickly, people were, probably not getting enough sleep. A lot of people, there was a walkout. A bunch of cameramen walked off the job right before, in protest, right before the shooting happened because of the conditions. So yeah, it was a lot of different things that all came together, but obviously, Hannah's role in it was literally fatal, because of it. But yeah, she was not experienced. Her stepfather, I think she got the job because of her stepfather, because he's
that's not her dad?
No, it's her stepfather.
Oh, okay.
This guy named Thel Reed.
And so she goes by the Reed is his last name. And that's why she said, Hannah Gutierrez. That's interesting. So you tacked on Reed to kind of help you a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. I think she got the job because of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she also had a kind of a strange obsession with guns. And she actually she pled guilty to another gun violation that happened just 20 days before this.
Really?
She went in. She does not. Yeah, she went into a bar in Santa Fe, like where the movie was being made, and she was carrying a concealed gun, but somehow got it past the the bouncers or whatever. Goes into the bathroom, makes a video showing the gun and bragging about how she got this gun past the security, and then post it on the internet.
Dear God. Hannah. We're not thinking our choices through.
Someone finds out, and she pled guilty to unlawful carrying of a firearm into a bar, and she got she got 18 months of supervised probation to run concurrently with her 18-month prison sentence for what happened on the Rust set. But anyway, that's what we're dealing with. I mean, we're just dealing with there's just a lot going on. And just, it was very interesting to me to see just from, 10,000 feet looking down at the whole production, and and this is a small film.
Yeah.
And just the number of people involved, all the working parts, and the whole magic of filmmaking, it's like what they have to do to make one scene look good, and that's why the cinematographer, which was what Halyna was, they called it director of photography, but it's cinematographer. They have to get the shot just right of the horse riding off into the sunset, and they have it's their visual, they see it in their mind, and then they have to make it kind of come alive, and then you have to actually film it, and you have to have people in the sound and the camera people, and everything has to come together. It's incredibly complicated, and everyone is working really hard on this movie, to get it done. And so that was just interesting to see. And because it was a film, because everything was being filmed, they were able to make this film because they had footage of everything from behind the scenes. And so that made it really unique, and that most documentaries don't have, the entire story filmed, basically.
Yeah. Yes.
So, very, very well made. It was made by this, was it a friend of?
It's a friend of Halyna and her.
It was, I wrote it down somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it was very well done. I guess I kind of feel like the director who also got shot, and he's also a victim. But I also kind of feel like, I don't feel like people held his feet to the fire as much. There's a little bit like, you're the director, you're the producer. I mean, there is a point at which Frances Fisher, right? She tells a story of the first day of her being on set, and she and Alec are talking. And all of a sudden, she says this woman comes up and she has a bunch of guns in her arms. And it seemed, and both of us looked at each other and said, that seems really unsafe. And it turned out it was Hannah. So there's a little bit of like, you knew Hannah wasn't the best. You knew this, like going in. And knowing that she got caught for this, there is a little bit of this, like, hello, the director, producer, nobody
questioned.
Nobody's questioning any of this. And Frances Fisher, she talks about this. She said, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to seem like a problem. And I think that is very much like certain people. And I think actors very much, she's a working actress. She's like, I shut up. I do my lines so I can keep doing this. And I don't want to be seen as difficult. And so she didn't say anything. Of course, she regrets that now. But that's what I'm talking about. There were a lot of people that could have said something. So why isn't anyone saying anything? And I feel like of all the people that we met, that first AD, Tom, he was the one that pled guilty. I feel like, is the only one that really is taking any kind of level of ownership.
Yeah.
Because he very much said, I screwed up. I was supposed to look at that gun and I didn't look at it hard enough.
Yeah. He was a safety coordinator. Dave Halls.
Oh, Dave Halls.
Yeah. Oh, and it was Rachel Mason as the director. And she's a filmmaker and she was friends with Halyna, and Halyna's husband, Matt, asked her to make this film. And so, she felt like she had to, go back to the beginning and tell the story of, this whole project. And yeah, and it isn't until the end that we kind of learn more about Halyna as a person. But I mean, so tragic. Just, and the just all the perfect storm of things that had to come together to make this happen. It was such a freak accident. And that's what made it so just unbelievable. And, Alec Baldwin, I think, it seemed like he unfairly, I felt, took the brunt for like the whole film production. He was like the face. He was an executive producer. And yes, he was the one who pulled the trigger, but he thought it was a cold gun. Yeah. Either there was no ammunition in there or it was dummy ammunition. Because they were, when the shooting happened, they were actually rehearsing a scene. And it was a scene where Alec is inside this little church. So the set is like this old Western town. It's a Western movie. And he's sitting inside this little church and he's kind of crunched over and he's got this gun in his hand. And so because of the cameraman walkout the day before, there was only like one cameraman and Halyna. Yeah. And normally they would be set up outside looking at the...
Yeah, they call it Video Village. Video Village. Where they have a bunch of monitors where the cinematographer director would normally be standing watching the shot.
Right. So they're watching it from a distance. And then there's another cameraman inside the, doing the close-up shot with the actor. So because there was no one else, she and one other person were inside the church with the camera right in front of Alec. And they're rehearsing how he's going to, like, his hand's going to come up and he's going to shoot because someone's coming in or something. And so they're rehearsing, and he actually has a live gun with a live bullet in it, unbeknownst to anybody, which was given to him by Hannah. And so the gun goes off, a bullet literally rips through Halyna's body, comes out her body, goes into Joel's body, the director, who's, standing right behind her, which that is weird. And she died because it ripped like right through her upper torso. Yeah. Where all those organs, through your heart and everything. But he survived. I mean, it's just freakish. Yeah. Absolutely freakish. But they blamed it all on, so this is all, I understand why they charged Hannah, but why was he charged?
Yeah, well, I think the question is, did he pull the trigger or not? Like, did he actually pull the trigger? But again, if he thought he was rehearsing, why couldn't he, even if he pulled the trigger?
But that's not even a question. I think obviously he pulled the trigger. I don't think that was ever an issue. He pulled the trigger thinking that there was nothing in the gun, that nothing was going to happen. It was maybe a reflexive thing. Like he's rehearsing, he's pretending to shoot someone. So, your finger's going to probably reflexively pull the trigger. He did not think there was anything in that gun. He thought it was a cold gun, meaning it's empty. There's nothing in the chambers.
Yeah. I mean, listen, do I think that Alec deserved all of this? No. But I think it's sort of like this is the flip side of being the most famous person there. The reality is that they got any money to make that Western that I don't think anyone really wanted to go see. I'm sorry. I don't really enjoy Westerns. But they got the money to make that Western because of his name. And so he has that kind of pull and that kind of, so that's kind of what happens is unfortunately he got the brunt of everyone's comments. And I think that what was very interesting about the documentary is I really like the fact that they did not lead you anywhere. They just sort of presented what was happening as it went. And you get to decide how you perceive it. Who do you think's at fault? Who do you think's to blame? Right. And, I think it was fascinating to see how they would sort of, as the story was unfolding, what the court of public opinion, right? Because at first everyone just had a goddamn opinion about, this is what should happen now. And now, this person should be in trouble and the set needs to shut down. And then when they went back to reshoot and finish the film, there was all this criticism. They shouldn't finish that and it's true. Like once we hear the explanation of why it was finished, you're like, oh, that makes complete sense. And I understand that. Okay. But just this rush to judgment. And I think the documentary was making another comment about where we are in our world today, that because everyone have platforms to criticize and talk about everything incessantly, we don't dig into anything. We see a headline and then boom, we have an opinion.
Well, yeah, everyone sees Alec Baldwin's name. You're right. I mean, no one cared about this film, but it's like, oh, Alec Baldwin shot someone. Oh, Alec Baldwin. And Alec Baldwin has had quite a history with the press, with paparazzi. He does not like them. They used to totally stalk him when he was going through his divorce with Kim Basinger. And so, there's already that tension there.
Yeah.
And so, and they started doing it to him again. And there's a famous scene where, I remember seeing this in real time when it was happening, where Alec and Halyna Baldwin are just trying to drive to their house, and the press are just surrounding them. They stop their car, get out of their car, and confront the press. And Halyna is filming it with her iPhone, and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, it's like, what do you want from us? Like, you can't hunt us down like animals." And there's this confrontation between the two of them.
Well, and Alec Baldwin says, "Listen, I'll answer whatever questions you want me to answer. I cannot talk about the case. So I can't talk about this ongoing case. So do you want to ask me questions?" And then the reporter couldn't even remember Halyna's name.
Yeah.
And they both were like, you care so much about this person that you're trying to hunt me down.
You don't know her name.
You don't know her name and who she is.
Yeah. And so, and they show when, after the shooting, they show, they say to Alec and to Hannah, "We want you to come down to the sheriff's department. We want to question you." And, she is just, she's really can't explain anything. And Baldwin is just, he's cooperative. He's telling them what he knows. And then they tell him that she didn't make it, that she died. And he looked just like he was going to throw up, like he was going to pass out, like he was just like, total shocked. I felt sorry for him.
Yeah. Because I think the other thing was that I think in that moment, I don't think he in a million years thought she would die. Like, I think that he still was in that headspace of that was not a real, they did not believe it was a real bullet. No one still believed it was a real bullet. So I think that was the other thing too, was that he thought that they were going to say, oh, they both got shot, but they're fine. To hear that she had died, he was visibly shocked and mortified.
Yeah, you're right. They didn't believe it was a real bullet. No. And Joel Sousa said the same thing. He's like, he has been shot, and the doctor's telling him, you have been shot. And he's like, no, I don't know what that was that went into my body, but it was not a bullet. I was not shot. Yeah, they couldn't believe, because no, there's no live rounds on a movie set. What are you talking about? This has to be something else that happened. And the doctors were like, no, look, here it is. It's a bullet that we took out of your body.
So
One
I think,
bullet.
So if I didn't think it was a real bullet, I'd be with Alec Baldwin thinking, oh, she was injured.
Yeah.
But nothing, you know. So
strange. It's so strange. So let's see. So they just kind of recount, that day, like what happened. Everyone's in disbelief. Everyone on set is just can't understand what happened, because like I said, that this isn't even, it's out of the realm of anyone's possibility. This stuff's not even allowed on set. It's just not a thing.
But I do want to say, so the bullet part, yes, but the more we learn, the more we're like, okay, some things were ignored. I'm sorry, but the fact that your entire camera crew basically got off and left, and there seemed to be this real discrepancy about who was in the right, who was in the wrong. That I think the camera crew, apparently one person was saying that they had kind of isolated themselves and they would rip on everyone all the time, and they were very negative. So are you trying to make
the camera crew was like that?
Yeah, I can't remember who was talking about this, but again, I want to go back to Joel and some of these other producers. Your entire camera crew walked off and wrote a letter detailing why they left. And this happens the next day. Yeah. So to me, that feels like we're back to the same thing. And again, this issue of 14-hour work days, people not paying attention, not spending the money to get someone who really knows what they're doing, all of these things, you can see that. And again, I just feel like the people in charge needed to have a little bit more accountability for this. Like, they all walked off, and you've got a woman running around. You've been observing her. She just got in trouble for bringing a gun somewhere else. You think that she has the best judgment? I think that that's the thing. And again, I think because of exhaustion and just being in it, that normally rational people, that if they had enough sleep and had enough awareness, they would have stopped this. They wouldn't have kept going.
Well,
they kept going.
There's a couple things. They couldn't afford to stop and lose a day of production.
Yes.
Because of this budgetary constraint. And part of the camera people's complaint was that there had already been 2 what they called misfires on set already. So I'm not even quite sure what does misfire mean? Because again, if we're not talking about real bullets, what is misfiring? Is the gun misfiring, and there's no bullet in it, but there could be an explosion that could hurt somebody? Because you watch these men in these shootout scenes, and they're shooting these, they have these guns in their hand, they're shooting, and you can see the force of the pressure, the force of the shot, their hand moves their hand back. They use sounds. There's sound people who shoot things to make it sound louder, but there is some force or something is happening with this gun, and the dummy round makes like a loud noise, and it creates this pushback. So I guess you could get hurt that way. Like, you lose control of the gun, it bounces out of your hands, it goes off, hits somebody else. Anyway, there was 2 prior events where there was a misfire. But that didn't stop production. That kept going. Nothing was done to address it. That was part of their grievance. Yeah, there was no stopping. If something happened, well, we don't have time. We've only got a month and we've only got this budget and so much time and whatever to do this. We can't afford to stop. So,
yeah. Well, but that's the thing is, who was the adult? Who's the adult? Who's the person that says it doesn't matter if we can't, we have to stop? You know, and I think that is a very important part of all of this. And I think that, again, how we got to the 40-hour work week is because on those Henry Ford, they figured out that when people hit a certain number of hours working, that they start to make mistakes. And so there is, there is a real problem with that. That was one of the things. I never liked being on sets. I learned that very quickly, like working in Hollywood, is that I find that whole set culture to be, I don't like it at all, because it's all hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. It's very, very intense. And then there's nothingness, tense, and then nothingness. And that day after day after day of not getting enough sleep and doing that, it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah. Well, Hannah made a couple of statements. I think this is when she was being questioned by the police. Alec was still stuck on, this doesn't happen. How did this happen? Where did it come from? Because, this concept of a bullet, he's really stuck on that. Meanwhile, over in the other room, Hannah is saying, oh, well, I don't understand how this happened. I wish I would have checked it more. What? You wish you would have checked it more? That sent off, a signal in my mind that she knew that there was some possibility that there was something else, that there was maybe a live round, which, turned out to be true and turned out to be, I think, her fault.
Yeah. She obviously has very poor judgment. If it's a known fact that you never have live rounds on a film set, why are you bringing live rounds to the film set? Why is that even near your stuff? Like,
right. Why is that?
Why is it in your purse? Yeah. Why is it anywhere near you at all? And so that's where I do put this on her, because again, she was young. She wasn't as experienced, but the thing was that this is not some secret thing. Like, listen, things happen where, because you don't have enough experience and there was no way for you to ever know because you just are young and it's never come up before. But if something is a known fact that, like, it's the armorist code, no live rounds on a set, that seems like a pretty simple one to remember and keep with you as you go along.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about when we get to the trial part about that. But yeah, there was something in the back of her mind.
Yeah.
That she knew that if she had just checked more, this wouldn't have happened. And so, leads to the question, why do you need to check? So anyway, then we get into this whole section where the OSHA inspector.
Oh, yeah. I liked him.
So, of course, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they're responsible for making sure that workplaces are safe. So here's a killing, a death that happens in the workplace. So they're automatically going to investigate that. And so this guy says there's no way that this is limited to 3 people. That there's only 3 people responsible here. He says you have to have a culture, a workplace culture that creates this.
Yes.
And so the investigation starts into, the safety practices and what was happening. And so the camera guy, Lane, he was the main one who resigned the day before, citing gun safety, lack of rehearsal, lack of preparation. Again, the long days, and there's all these explosions and weapons, and everyone's playing fast and loose. There's misfires. And then they interview Hannah, and she says she expected to get canned after that. And actually, no one even questioned her.
Yeah. And again, that's why I keep coming back to these line producers. Hannah was already on a PIP, a performance plan, a little bit. Hannah was, she was a little bit already in trouble. So that's my point. My point is that yes, Hannah should be the one serving time. Hannah should have just taken the deal. But I'm sorry, Joel, the director, really bugged me. He was way too cash. Like, he acted like he had zero part of this. Like, oh, I just got hurt. It's like, no, you're the director. The director really it depends on how big the director is versus the producers versus the star. Like, there's all this hierarchy, but those people are the people that are in charge.
Yeah. Yeah. And the OSHA guy said he questioned who is in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's this whole thing about Hannah getting the job because of nepotism. She admitted to being unprepared. Like you said, she was also doing the job as a prop assistant. And they were telling her, so the armorer gets paid more than the prop assistant. Yeah. And they were telling her, well, you're spending too much time on this armorer stuff over here. You need to come over here and, spend more time doing the props. She had left some firearms unattended. Mm-hmm. She only had one day of training. There's guns jamming. I mean, it was just a complete mess. And it was production over safety because of money.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
And that is on the people making the production, making those decisions day in, day out. Those are the people that are responsible. And I think Alec was an executive producer, but I don't think that was his role. I'm really talking about like the director, the line producer, those people
on the ground. Yeah.
The people that were seeing it.
Yeah, because the OSHA guy said Hannah was a symptom of the illness, not the illness. And so the state of New Mexico fined the Rust production for willful gun safety failures because they didn't take any action on the prior misfires. In February 2023, OSHA agreed to settle with Rust Productions, and they were not required to admit any wrongdoing. And then a month later, the Santa Fe district attorney assigned a special prosecutor to move the criminal case forward against that guy Dave, that first assistant. He was also charged. I don't think he was not charged with manslaughter, I don't think.
No, he pled. I feel like is the only person that said I should have been checking. That's on me. I take ownership. What do I need to plead to? Yeah. He's the only one.
Psych Legal Pop will be right back after these messages. But Hannah and Alec were charged with involuntary manslaughter. I don't know why the other executive producers weren't. But anyway, so this woman, can't remember her last name. Carrie, is it Morrissey? Something like that. I just wrote down Carrie. She talks about how there never should have been live rounds on the set. But there were other live rounds found in other places on the set. And that were not in that box that the live bullet came out of. They found a live round in Alec's belt. And they found another live round in another box of bullets. And again, the whole focus, they're asking Hannah this, why would there be live ammo on the set at all? And she's like, I have no idea. Seems like they were mixed in. And so basically she had, I think the movie didn't do a very good job. My one criticism is they didn't do a very good job of explaining how this live round got there. So I had to kind of look into it myself, but basically there's different theories about where it could have come from. So, one is that she knowingly brought the live rounds onto the set and failed to check them or to separate them from dummy rounds. Another theory is it could have been, they could have come from a previous production called 1883, where her stepfather was working on that set, and he provided the live rounds to her. There was obvious mixing of ammunition. And so she testified that she supplied 2 boxes of dummies to the Rust production that were left over from another production she worked on. She took them from a bag where they had been kept loose and checked them before putting them into the box. So she's got a bunch of loose ammo in her purse. She takes them out, kind of looks at them, separates them, puts them into these boxes. And she actually took a picture of it on her iPhone. So she has these photos of the boxes after she'd separated it all out. And you can see that one of the bullets looks distinctively different from the rest because the tip of it has like a different color or something. And they said that was the live round. That two rounds that were visible in the tray had silver primers and were live rounds, because on the 1883 set, the cast members were shooting live ammunition, and that's the set that her stepfather was working on.
But so, I thought there wasn't supposed to have live rounds on a set.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. So maybe this isn't completely unheard of. I don't know.
Yeah. So it does sound like there are live rounds I think that it depends on the production and who's doing it and how it all works. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not, we didn't grow up around guns. Our parents aren't gun people. So I do wonder, is it because she just grew up with guns and that she was so casual about it all? I don't know. I would think that she would be more aware of why would you think that it's okay to just dig through your purse for bullets? And do you know what I mean? Why wouldn't you check them many times?
I think she had a very unhealthy relationship with guns because of, what she did at the bar. And also there's a bunch of photos of her posing with guns where she's like all dolled up and dressed up and posing with guns, like in a sexual sort of fashion. Yeah, I think she just plays too fast and loose with this stuff because it goes both ways. If you grow up around guns, you either are very cognizant of gun safety because you've been taught that, this is, if you're using it for hunting or sportsmanship or whatever, that type of thing, those people tend to be very safety oriented. But just guns as
maybe
toys, guns as weapons, guns as not so much. Gun safety, when you're using guns for inappropriate things, is probably not, at the top of your list.
Yeah.
But this prosecutor said that there were 6 live bullets floating around the set since October 10th until the shooting happened.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm convinced that, this woman she clearly brought this. So ironic. She brought these to the set, and her primary job was to test these rounds before they're put into a gun. And it just didn't happen. Absolutely just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And, they show the guy later who, when they went back to complete the filming, who was the armorist, and you saw how meticulous he was with everything. And he said, even though we know these aren't the real rounds, we act as if they are. That's how careful we are. We act as if we are using live rounds and these are real weapons, and we treat them as such, so that then there's no way that this can happen.
And that's the whole thing where everyone is calling Hannah, oh, she's a Nepo baby, but there is a little bit of, but they hired her. They hired her knowing this. Because
she was cheap.
Yeah.
That's why they hired her.
And that's why you did it. And I think there's something to be said. Like, you cheaped out on the one thing that could kill someone. Like, I think it's a little bit different. Like, a costume's not going to hurt somebody, I mean, maybe craft services could, but anything else on that set isn't going to kill anyone except for, cheap out on the prop person, get an intern to be your prop person, all of it. It's just, I know hindsight's 20/20, but there is a little bit of, you should know better. You should know better. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's and that guy Halls who pled guilty. He acknowledged that his job was to check. He was supposed to be the double check. Like, he was supposed to double check Hannah's work, and he wasn't, and he didn't. And he accepted responsibility, and he got like 6 months of probation. I
wonder. And Hannah was also offered a plea deal for no jail time, it sounds like.
Was she?
I remember that Carrie said something like they were trying to work with her on getting a plea deal. But I don't know. Hannah, I go back and forth on, because on the one hand, I feel for her. She's 24 years old. Her frontal lobes aren't developed. Like, she obviously is very immature. Her judgment is not great. There should have been more oversight for her. She should have never been hired. She should have been fired. Like, so many of these things that I feel like she, that an adult needed to step in and didn't. But I'm amazed that she didn't take the deal. Like, you're going to go to, she shouldn't, she shouldn't be.
I'm not sure she was offered a deal.
I remember them saying that they tried to offer, that they were trying to work with her on a plea agreement. Because they always want them to plead. You know that they don't want to spend the money on a trial.
I think they wanted her to do some jail time, maybe that's 6 months or whatever. Maybe that was the deal breaker.
Yeah.
That she just wouldn't agree to that. But I don't know who was advising her. I mean, I think that her attorney thought that because how this happened was so chaotic, there was a lot of room to argue reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And because, there were a lot of steps that weren't taken and things that didn't happen. And so you're going to put it all on her, like she's 100% responsible. But but the idea with involuntary manslaughter is that just because it's an accident doesn't mean that, you're not criminally negligent, that you weren't reckless, that you didn't have disregard for, for safety or human life. So her trial... Oh, go ahead.
And I'm sorry. And I do feel like they proved that. I mean, just the fact that you took the gun into that bar 20 days earlier.
Well, I don't even know if that was even part of that. Was just something I learned when I went to go, search about more about what happened with, how did these bullets get here? I came across that. I don't even know if that was part of the trial, or if, I don't know. I'm sure.
Well, even if it wasn't, I think they got it right. I think the jury got it right. I think, this is not someone who's paying attention.
There was plenty of other evidence of sloppiness too. So her trial started in February 2024. And, and the internet was kind of crucifying her, calling her a Nepo baby, basically throwing her under the bus. Here, I have the notes here. So the special prosecutor wanted to negotiate a plea to keep her out of jail, but she went to trial. Okay, so I guess
she didn't have to serve time. But I also understand that her maybe feeling if she felt justified for whatever reason, she has the right to go to trial. But it was.
Well, she didn't want that on her record. She didn't want at 24 to have a felony, involuntary manslaughter on her record for the rest of her life. But the DA used the theory that Hannah brought these live rounds to the set. And, they were in her box that she brought from the last set. And, basically it doesn't matter where they came from, but, it's just an additional level of carelessness and recklessness. And the jury took 3 hours to convict her, to get a guilty verdict. And she was sentenced to the maximum sentence of 18 months in prison.
Is she still, so she was sentenced in February. Did she have to do all 18 months or does she?
I don't know if there's any early release. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
It depends on the.
So she's still in Santa Fe in New Mexico right now.
I think she's still in prison. I'm pretty sure. So then turning to Alec's trial, which came second. So the DA's theory was that, even though it's not his job to, make sure there's not a live round in the gun, his job is to handle the gun safely once it is in his hands, which I think is a ridiculous argument.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he has a cold gun. So what did he do that was unsafe?
I mean, because then what is your expectation? That he then checked the gun as well? I mean, yeah, I'm with him on this. Like, you now have two people have checked this gun, that this is their job. They hand you the gun. They say this is a cold gun. So is Alec then expected to open the barrel, look at each bullet and check again and again, and to know what's a dummy and what's live? I wouldn't know. Do you know? Hannah Gutierrez barely knew. Like, she got him mixed up. Like, how is he supposed to know?
I think when they say it's his responsibility to then handle it safely, I think they're more focused on the fact that he pulled the trigger. But what is wrong with pulling the trigger on a gun where there's no bullet? Because if there was no bullet, there's no consequence to pulling the trigger. So how is pulling the trigger dangerous?
Yeah,
I don't think it makes sense. But
I don't think that Carrie would admit it, but I think they felt pressure. I think they felt pressure to include him.
Oh, they had a lot. They had a lot of pressure. They had to come up with something. So much pressure that it turns out they suppressed evidence that was favorable to him. So on the third day of trial, now a jury has already been picked, already been sworn in. Double jeopardy has attached.
Okay.
So on the third day of trial, Alec's attorney accused the prosecution of failing to turn over evidence. And so it turns out that there was evidence. There was another, there was bullets turned into the sheriff around the time of Hannah's trial that came from the same batch as the live ammunition used on the set. They, instead of disclosing that, turning that over to the defense before Alec's trial started, so that they could have it tested or, do whatever they were going to do with it, they suppressed it. They filed the evidence under a different case number.
Oh,
yeah, they hid it. It was, and I don't know.
And what's Carrie's explanation for that?
Well, she said that she believed that the bullets were not the same as the fatal bullet and not relevant to Baldwin's trial. Okay, well, that doesn't make sense, because if they came from the same batch, it's relevant. I mean, I would think any ammunition found on that set is relevant. And to know where it was found, how it was kept, what's live. I mean, of course it's relevant, but there's this pressure to convict Alec Baldwin. And I guess, and I don't know who the whistleblower was or who brought this to light, but as soon as the woman the district attorney who was the first chair on Alec's case, as soon as she found that out, she resigned. She was like, I can't in good conscience prosecute this. And, this is her office that's done. She didn't know, clearly.
So, yeah. So who exactly? So Carrie is the special prosecutor. So that person's brought in for these very special cases, I guess, or high profile cases. Is that what a special prosecutor does?
Yeah. Sometimes they'll come in because they're from a different, they want someone outside of that jurisdiction who's maybe not like involved in the local anything. Or for someone who's supposed to be more neutral, outside of the zone of, this community.
So if her argument was, well, we didn't think that had anything to do with the case, then why would you file it under something else? If it wasn't important to the case, you would have either given it to them or it was still been filed with everything correct. And who decides what's important and not important? I thought you had to hand everything over.
Exactly.
And everyone decides, So I don't know, Carrie. I was with you there, Carrie, but
yeah. And she's in this documentary, and she's talking about all this stuff, which I'm kind of surprised because, to me, it looks like the orders came from her because remember these bullets came in the middle of Hannah's trial. So there was plenty of time to tell Alec's attorneys, oh, hey, we have this new evidence. But they didn't want to. They just made a decision in their own mind. Oh, this isn't relevant. And by the way, we're going to file it over here where no one can find it. And I don't know how they found it. I couldn't find anything about. Someone had to have said something, or maybe someone was going through that other case and was like, "What's this? This doesn't belong in here." I don't know, but there was this real dramatic scene in the courtroom where the judge put on these latex gloves and she cut open this bag that had the bullets in it and inspected it, and that's when she declared that she was granting the Baldwin's motion to dismiss with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled, cannot be retried. That is it. It's double jeopardy because once the jury is impaneled, jeopardy attaches. So if it gets dismissed after that, that's that.
Yeah. But it's just so funny. All the levels of these things, they talked about what Rust is about, and Rust is about an accidental shooting, right? And just seeing all of this and talking, everyone's talking about how even the courtroom stuff played out like a movie. Like how could that be? But what we see is, if I can just get on my soapbox for a second, what we're seeing is Rust is about, it's about a poor workplace culture. And then you've got all this pressure to blame someone. Someone has to be to blame. And I think the big thing that we saw from this documentary, which is what I liked about it, was the fact that it showed us that, everybody's to blame in their own ways. Like this is human nature. We want to know, who do we blame? So who can we be mad at? Where can I put all of my anger and frustration and heartache? And I can just put it on this one person. But I want to know that. So then we have the people that are supposed to hold those people accountable. Their culture sucks because they're suppressing evidence. Do you know what I mean? It's just a little bit like, so even you, the quote unquote Carrie, the hero, the special prosecutor that's coming in, it's like, oh, so you're playing dirty too. You also aren't. Or you could also say you're being sloppy because you weren't paying attention to what people were doing. All of it. It's just like, dear God.
Yeah, I know. And it's also scary that, what if they didn't uncover this violation? What if the case had gone to trial? What if Baldwin had been convicted? Just so many things. It's like, sliding doors here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I can't remember if we talked about this on Patreon or here or where, but, we've been watching, I keep watching. We talked about the Baldwin show on TLC, and I kept watching it because like my DVR keeps recording. I'm like, okay, I'll keep watching the show. And what we're seeing now is the aftermath of the case has been dismissed. He's back in, he's with his family again. He's back in the Hamptons. And the fact that like now he's kind of starting to recover. Yeah. Hilaria brings him to a therapist to go and talk to a therapist. And I hope he keeps going because he's got PTSD and he's already got OCD and some other anxiety related issues that in some ways, yes, this part is over. And you would think that, oh, shouldn't he be like, okay, great. On to the next thing.
No celebratory.
Yeah. But he is still very, 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 rightly so, very disturbed and just overwhelmed. And a lot of people, what I thought was interesting about the last couple episodes is he was talking about, because I think this whole thing made him really realize, like, what is the point of my life? Like, what am I doing? And I think for him, it was like, no, I have these children. I have this family. This is what I want to do. And he talks about like how he is now much more, he's like, I want to be home with my kids. And I think we're seeing why everyone made fun of the TLC show, myself included, of like, oh God, Alec Baldwin's really selling out, or he really needs money. But I think the thing is that I think he realized like, I can do the show and stay at home with my kids. I don't have to memorize lines, because he talked about that. He's like, I cannot memorizing lines. I think some of it's his age, but everything that he's been through. I think what we're seeing is a man who's at the end of a trauma.
Yeah.
And truly doing this show is the only thing that I think he can really do right now, or wants to do right now. And it allows him to be with his family.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, his response. And the whole family, I mean, they show him on the show coming back because they were gone for a couple weeks. And mind you, the kids didn't even know if he was going to return home.
Yeah.
Because if the trial had gone through and he would have been convicted, they could have just taken him into custody, and he might have been gone for a year or more or whatever. So they come home and it's just so emotional because, and if emotional for the kids, and some of the kids understand what's going on, some of them don't, but they know their dad has been gone a long time, and they love their dad and they miss their dad. And here he is, and he's emotional, and Hilaria is emotional. And and they're not celebrating. This is not a win. It's literally like, okay, we survived this battle, and now like PTSD, like you're coming off the warfield or something. And now all his stuff is amping up, like his OCD and his anxiety is amping up because I think he's out of that survival mode, and now he's allowing himself to feel all this stuff. And imagine what it's like to live the rest of your life knowing you killed someone, even though it was an accident.
Yeah.
And you didn't put into place it wasn't his mistake that caused the accident, but he did pull the trigger, and someone's dead because of it.
And he witnessed it. Don't forget, he was right up close to it. He witnessed it. He watched it happen. I also wonder, he doesn't talk about this, but I do wonder, that people dumped him. That I don't think maybe his management maybe kept him, or his agents, because he's been with them for a long time. But I'm sorry, we see this all the time. People in Hollywood, especially, if you get some stink on you, if you get canceled, you are dumped real fast. And so I also wonder with him, if he's stopping and going, you know what? My wife's still here. My family's still here. My brother is here. Like, his sister was there. Like, these are the people that love me and support me. And I just need to find a way to make a living this way. Because he looks tired. I mean, the bags under his eyes are big, and he is very, very tired.
He's like 67 years old. He's been working very hard his whole life.
Yeah.
He is tired. He's just been through a trauma. Yeah. What else is he really going to do?
Yeah. So he wants to sit in his backyard of his Hamptons estate. And if a camera crew wants to film him cleaning something up, and they really can. But I think, so to me, seeing all this and watching the documentary, it makes all of it makes so much more sense of like why he chose this and why he's doing what he's doing, and all of those things. And again, as parents, I'm sure they were trying to protect their kids, but the kids feel everything. You can't not do that. So you've also got to understand that these are two people that are having to be different people at different times for different people. And then you leave the house and you're getting bombarded. So anyway.
Well, yeah. So in the end, they do finish the film. It was very important to everyone to honor her, finish the film. And then we get to see a little bit about her. They show her mother. Her mom wants it finished because she wants to see her daughter's work. And so her mom, Olga, who still lives in Ukraine, we see her. We saw a quick clip of her husband. And so they bring in this woman, Bianca. I don't know if she had a connection to Halyna, or I'm sure this is a small kind of community. She probably knew hers. They bring her in as the new cinematographer, and she's working with Joel. And again, Joel is just kind of like, kind of got through this rather unscathed. I know he got shot, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Well, so we learn about Halyna. So she grew up, wait, I'm confused, at the Arctic Circle on a military base. I'm like, wait, whoa.
Yeah.
We just bypassed that one. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Her father must have been in, the Russian army. Because Ukraine was part of, I don't know how old she is, but, probably that's back when Ukraine was part of Russia. Yeah, in the beautiful Arctic Circle right up there by, the tip of the Soviet Union up there.
Yeah, and it's
interesting.
And that's where, this imagination and becoming an artist and what she wanted to do, and that's her art, and knowing that they wanted to finish the film so that people could see her art. Her mom wanted to see her art. The fact that they premiered it at that film festival in Poland where all of her friends were going to be, it was like, oh, okay, all of this makes complete sense of why they did it that way. And yeah, they're right. They this idea of like, oh, they should just scrap that. It's like, well, no, she made this. Like, let her put her art on. Let's see it.
Yeah, and it was interesting. So Bianca had Helena's notebook where she, wrote down her visions for all this. It was interesting how there was all these references to other movies. It was like she's talking about certain scenes, and she wants it to look like a scene from. She wrote down The Night Of. Remember that show?
Yeah.
So she's thinking of a scene from The Night Of, and she wants it to look similar to that. And so she's making notes. And one of the things said Stranger Things, and it was sort of interesting that that's the process. Like that's how they think. They pull from. They have this image, and they pull from other images and other scenes and whatever. So Bianca tried to be true to that vision that she had. It's just what a fucking sad story.
But I could also imagine for the people on set, I think for them, if I was on that set, it must feel a bit cathartic, right? To come back, to do it, to be back with these, as painful and difficult as it was. I think it probably, healing wise, was what was best for everyone involved. Yeah.
And then at the very end, they have a chyron up that says California became the first state to pass legislation regulating the use of firearms on set, but no industry-wide changes have been made. Other than Alec Baldwin, no other Rust producer was criminally charged, but they are named as defendants in at least 5 different civil cases. So I know there was a wrongful death case from Helena's family with Baldwin. I think it was settled. I remember reading that, but just very sad.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that they had insurance. I assume that like insurance pays out for these. Could they sue?
Not very much.
Could they sue Alec Baldwin personally?
Who? Her family?
Her family, yeah.
They could try, and I thought I read that he settled a lawsuit with them. I could be wrong. I'm sorry, I'm not sure, but I know there was at least one wrongful death case that was settled. I think it was with Baldwin. I mean, yeah, obviously, it's a workers' comp case. It's a death on, in the workplace. There's money, there's insurance money, but it's not a lot, I'm sure. I mean, the big money is going after Alec Baldwin or whoever else is being sued. I don't know. The producer, the other executive producers, maybe she didn't sue Baldwin personally. Maybe he was just sued as an EP. Because, I mean, what is she going to sue him for? Like negligence? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to do it, but I don't know.
Well, I wonder if some of the other lawsuits, like I'm wondering if those camera people are suing somebody, right? Like you said, there's 5 different lawsuits. It's like, well, who are these other lawsuits? Like 5 different ones besides the family. I mean, is Joel suing? I mean,
Maybe.
he's the only other person that got hurt. But then it makes me wonder, did the camera crew, right? Is the camera crew a little bit like, hold on a second, we told you? Because I do think one piece of this
but what are their damages?
I don't know.
I mean, what,
you're right.
You have to have to
lost wages,
you have to have damages.
They did quit, but I just want to say that one of the things about, right, like not only the actors, but the people, the production people too, these jobs, it's all about relationships. And that's why complaining about things. And I think that the camera crew, it sounds to me like they really went on a limb to write this letter to say, we're leaving, goodbye, peace out. I don't know. But again, you're right. What are the damages? They made the choice to leave.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
To look into that.
Yeah.
What these lawsuits are about. I'll report back.
All right. Well, that was a good documentary. It was very well done. I'm glad that her friend did it. I'm glad that her husband, Halyna's husband, feels like she, something was made that they could be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, very interesting. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoy our podcast, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. That helps our podcast a lot. We are on Patreon if you want more of us and more, talk about all kinds of different things, including our own personal lives. We have a Patreon that you can join. We're on all the social medias, Psych Legal Pop. And we are here. We're doing Sister Wives on what day?
Tuesday. It's Tuesdays.
Tuesday. So it's changing.
I know.
Tuesdays, we're right now recapping old episodes, waiting for the second half of the season 19 to start again. It comes back April 20th. So we'll be covering that. And on our Thursday show, we do documentaries such as this, and we do other interesting topics, interesting TV shows. So join us Monday Tuesday. Jesus.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're back to our Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
We had to switch everything because of Love is Blind.
Yeah, that screwed up our whole schedule. And now I can't even remember what I'm doing. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please join us. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.